Coming up on KPBS Evening Edition, a federal court says no to another appeal to save the controversial cross on Mount Soledad.
And researchers at UC San Diego shake things up, literally, to learn more about creating buildings that are safer in earthquakes.
KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dwayne Brown.
And I'm Amitha Sharma, in for Joanne Farian.
Healthcare reform means some changes for people on Medicare. What you need to know coming up in just a few minutes. But first, tonight's top stories.
We begin with the latest court action in the controversy over the cross on Mount Soledad. A full panel of federal judges has declined to rehear the case. In January, a three-judge panel had ruled that the cross must go, saying it conveys a message of religion and is unconstitutional. A group fighting to preserve the monument appealed to the full 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, but a majority of the full court's 11 judges denied their request. The Mount Soledad Memorial Association says a 29-foot cross is a war memorial. It's been fighting for decades to keep the cross at its site, which is a public park. The association says it will appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court.
1 year after launching a campaign to end chronic homelessness in downtown San Diego, organizers released a progress report. It says the average age is 53, and most homeless people have been on the streets for about 7 years.
Last September, volunteers counted more than 1,000 homeless people within a week, trying to identify those most at risk of dying from health-related issues. The majority are struggling with mental illness or substance abuse. Today, civic, business, and federal agencies gave an update on what's being done. They identified 125 people who now have shelter. 75 were recently serving military tours in Iraq or Afghanistan.
When we take somebody off of the street and provide intensive case management and put them in an apartment and provide them with mental health treatment, they get remarkably better. When we try to do that when they're not housed, they don't get better.
Nearly 400 of the people identified in the survey are at risk of dying due to medical conditions if they remain homeless. Many business and homeowners say the problem adversely affects their neighborhood. The Occupy San Diego movement gathered outside, encouraging business owners and anyone else who would listen to join their cause.
If we fix the big problems, the homeless problem will be fixed and the people in front of the buildings will be fixed. So they should join our cause and help us fight the good fight and actually try to fix the social economic inequality that's going on in this country right now, which is causing the homeless population to rise.
Now, the campaign to end homelessness is seeking resources to help another 125 people find housing and other assistance by the end of the year.
Tonight, school officials in Chula Vista are discussing a ban on a synthetic drug called spice. It's a substance that's been sold as incense, but can imitate the effects of marijuana and cocaine when it's smoked. Spice sales are now banned in California, but possession and use of it are not. The synthetic drug attracted attention earlier this year when an Olympian high school student smoked it and went into cardiac arrest on graduation day. He survived.
Here's a follow-up now on our reports on a crackdown on medical marijuana in California. While the Justice Department has ordered collectives to shut down, federal attorneys say they don't intend to go after patients growing marijuana in their homes for personal use. The city of San Diego allows patients to grow up to 24 plants and possess up to 1 pound of processed marijuana as long as they have a valid medical marijuana ID card.
The San Diego City Council waded into water issues today, approving a policy aimed at securing the city's water supply. The plan was announced at the North City Water Reclamation Plant. Councilwoman Sherry Leitner spearheaded the effort to create a comprehensive water policy for the city. She says its main goal is to provide a framework for a sustainable water future.
If San Diego goes forward without a plan, a real comprehensive plan, we will be in hot water.
The policy covers facilities for improving water quality, water supplies, and conservation, among other things.
A new survey finds California has a robust solar power industry with a bright future. KPBS business reporter Erik Anderson is in the news center with the story. So, Erik, the study found California does pretty well when it comes to solar power. Tell us more.
Well, they do pretty well indeed. There are about 100,000 solar power jobs in the United States. Almost a quarter of them, a little bit more than a quarter, actually are filled by California workers, 25,000 of those jobs. Colorado is the second state in the list of number of jobs linked to the solar industry, and they only have about 6,200 jobs. So a big economic engine for the state of California, and they predict some growth. It grew 6.8% in the last year, and they expect that it is going to grow about 20% over the course of the next year. So some hope there for the economy, at least in the solar sector.
Now, a California company has cast a bit of a shadow over the state's solar industry lately. Eric, what happened, and why does that case make this report so welcome to supporters of solar power?
Well, Soledad is a company up in Fremont, California that really ran into a bit of a rough patch. So rough, in fact, that the company had to shut down, but not before they got some $535 million in federal loan guarantees. The solar industry says, look, don't focus on the negatives here, focus on the positive. The economy is growing, and so is the industry.
All right, KPBS business reporter Erik Anderson.
A San Diego company has developed a new way to detect Down syndrome in unborn babies. Maternity 21 is a DNA-based prenatal blood test that can be done as early as 10 weeks into a pregnancy. Researchers at Sequinome say the test is not meant to replace amniocentesis, which is done later in pregnancy.
San Diego City Council is considering a proposal to raise the cost of parking lot events at Qualcomm Stadium. A consulting firm says the city stands to make about $172,000 per year off these events if it sets minimum charges instead of fixed prices. About 200 events a year are held in Qualcomm's parking lot. The CEO and executive producer of San Diego's Old Globe Theater is stepping down. Lou Spisto says he's leaving at the end of the year to work independently as a producer. He says he's proud to leave the theater in its most stable financial condition in its 75-year history. And it's open enrollment season again for Medicare patients with some important changes. Amitha Sharma has details with her guests at the KPBS Evening Edition Roundtable.
It's a stressful time of year for many San Diego seniors, with Medicare open enrollment kicking off this weekend. Joining us to wade through all the paperwork is Carol Neidenberg. She's with the Consumer Center for Health Education and Advocacy. Carol, welcome.
Thank you.
What do seniors need to know about this enrollment?
This year it starts earlier than ever before. It began, as you said, on Saturday, which is October 15th, and it ends earlier. It ends December 7th. So this year it's earlier. And I would say people need to open up their information they got in the mail, talk to friends, and talk to their doctor about making that choice should they want to switch or join a Medicare Advantage plan.
What are the major changes that seniors need to know about?
This year, beside the open enrollment occurring earlier to allow people to make a choice, I think, before the holidays, they have a new 5-star rating system, which could be very confusing. I myself did a search on the health plans and came up with 33 health plans that I could choose from if I was on Medicare. That's a lot of paperwork to go through, and they're rated from 1 star or 0 stars to 5 stars. So that might be confusing for people. What exactly does the 5-star rating system mean? And how can they utilize it to best choose a health plan for themselves?
So do seniors have an opportunity to shop around then, and so there's a potential for saving money?
Absolutely. People could save money by joining a Medicare Advantage plan. They could save money that's from the original Medicare, which is fee-for-service, which gives a choice of any doctor who accepts Medicare, to going to an HMO or Medicare Advantage plan. You could also change and switch to another Medicare Advantage plan that could save you money as well.
And how easy is it to understand all of this information?
I'm not quite sure. Some people have no problems, but many people are very confused by the choices that they have and what does it mean to them personally. The Medicare.gov website is a good website to use. However, it still gives you choices. And that is, I think, of difficulty, because when you open the booklet and see that might be 33 plans to choose from, it's a difficult choice.
And how does your organization help seniors embarking on this process?
We've been very fortunate to have grants from several foundations as well as the county to help people choose the best plan for them, especially people who are looking to go into the low-income subsidy or extra help, which is the prescription Part D plan that will help them significantly save money. They could save up to $3,000 a year on medication cost alone. So what we do is that we ask the person what medications are on. We list them and we put them on the website, and then we give them recommendations of plans that would best suit their particular needs.
And in years past, how many people have access to your organization? Do a lot of people even know about your organization?
Well, the Consumer Center is the healthcare team for Legal Aid Society of San Diego, so we hope that many people know about us. We promote ourselves at meetings. We reach out through the internet, and I would say hundreds, if not thousands, of people have called us since 2005 when Medicare Part D began.
And it is very important that they read all the material, is it not?
It's important they read the material. Most importantly, I think, beside reading the material, opening the mail, the Medicare and You, and the other information, is talking to someone's doctor or doctors. Because when they choose a Medicare Advantage plan, they may not have, their doctor may not be part of that plan, or their specialist not be. So I recommend everyone, after you look at your medications, talk to your doctor or your important specialist and find out what plan they belong to.
So if their doctor isn't on their plan, how stressful is that?
Well, for seniors particularly, I think it is very stressful. They have a relationship, a long-term relationship with their doctor or their doctors, and they don't want to switch. And that's why we recommend going over this very carefully during the special enrollment period. This year, again, that's earlier and ends earlier, to talk to their doctors, give their doctors a call, talk to their scheduler, and find out which plan works best for them.
And very quickly right now, where can people get more information?
They can call us, of course, at our toll-free number, which is 877-734-3258. We're there Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and we have Medicare specialists ready to answer questions. They can go on www.medicare.gov, which is an excellent site. They can call Medicare and talk to someone as well.
Carol Neidenberg, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
The Tea Party and Occupy San Diego, two grassroots movements, one viewed as mostly conservative, the other as mostly liberal. Coming up, a look at the common ground between the two. And we'll visit one of the largest earthquake simulators in the world, right here in San Diego. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Tonight on KPBS. At 8, Antiques Roadshow touches down in Atlantic City, and host Mark Wahlberg tries his hand at glassblowing. His resulting work of art will not receive appraisal. Then at 9, Antiques Roadshow moves to Salt Lake City, where items including a copy of Brigham Young's Invasion Proclamation are appraised. And at 10, the best of the best, like the cracked teapot worth enough for its owners to buy their house, on Priceless Antiques Roadshow. That's tonight on KPBS.
The American people have named PBS
the most trusted source of news
and public affairs
for the 8th year in a row.
Trust.
The American people have spoken.
Thank you. I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, the role of big money super PACs in the presidential race, plus the Martin Luther King Memorial in Washington is dedicated. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Irwin Jacobs and by
Engineers know a lot about earthquakes, how they shake and stress modern buildings, and much of the knowledge has already been incorporated into California's building codes to help save lives. But they still want to know what quakes do to pipes, ceilings, and staircases. And to get that information, they're using a huge earthquake simulator at UC San Diego. From our BizTech desk, Erik Anderson gives us a look.
The skeleton of the structure reaches 5 stories above the shaking table. Square concrete columns wrap around reinforced steel bars. UC San Diego graduate student Michelle Chen surveys the tower.
Everything is full size, so it's the same size columns you would see in a normal building. It's basically the core of a whole structure.
Life-sized, except for the size of the floor plan. After all, the building is sitting on top of an earthquake simulator. And there are some other differences.
As you can see, the first 2 levels, they look pretty much the same. And then the 3rd level up there, which is what we call our 4th floor, there's some strands sticking out. The columns, floors, and ceilings are all wired, so researchers can measure how the structure will react to earthquakes. All the rebar in the beams have little gauges on them that have the wires connecting out, and we're measuring the deformation inside of the beams too.
But it's not the beams, columns, or floors that are the main focus of this project. It's the rest of the building they're interested in, like office walls and ceiling panels. Lead researcher Tara Hutchinson stands underneath the huge metal platform that the building is sitting on. It's here that huge pistons will actually simulate an earthquake.
We have a pair of actuators on either end, large hydraulic actuators that can push and pull the system at dynamic rates.
They can simulate mild earthquakes or strong ones, and in this case, they'll do both. Hutchinson says she wants to know how quakes will affect a building's plumbing, wiring, and things that are there but not necessarily vital to a building's structural integrity. Builders can put that knowledge to use immediately.
You have plumbers, electricians, you have a ceiling contractor, you have a wall contractor, for example, an interior wall contractor. So each of those trades needs to learn and benefit from the results of a testing program like this.
Hutchinson says 70% of the cost of a building is tied up in non-structural components. Building those things so they don't fail when they're under stress can save a lot of money after a big quake hits. Researchers already know a lot about how a column like this will perform during an earthquake, or a floor, or even a ceiling in a structure like this. What they don't know a lot about, though, is how a structure like this will perform in an earthquake. This is an elevator shaft. They want to make sure that an elevator like this will be working when they're done with an earthquake test. UCSD graduate student Alide Pantoli says having a hospital elevator that works after a major incident can be a lifesaver.
After a major earthquake, you want your hospital to be functional. You want it to work. It's not that it's not collapsed. You really want it to work perfectly, 100%. So this is what we're trying to achieve, to see if it's working after the earthquake.
Researchers say they'll test the tower with several smaller quakes before they shake the structure with a major shock. That'll help them see if there's cumulative damage that might compound a problem during a major earthquake.
That was KPBS reporter Erik Anderson. Engineers hope the lessons they learned here will help contractors make the insides of a building safer and more secure.
Occupy San Diego drew 1,000 protesters over the weekend as the Occupy Wall Street movement continues to spread across U.S. cities. Comparisons keep cropping up between it and the Tea Party. Rhonda Denniston, Oceanside Regional Director of Stop Taxing Us, the largest Tea Party group in San Diego, is with me to discuss her take on the occupiers. Rhonda, you actually visited the protests over the weekend. Why did you go, and what did you learn?
Well, I've learned through the Tea Party movement that the media doesn't always portray things accurately, and I really wanted to know what they were about. Absolutely.
So a lot of people have been talking about the similarities. Both movements, the Tea Party and the anti-Wall Street protesters, are considered genuine grassroots movements. They both contain citizens who are absolutely fed up with the political and economic system that they believe does not represent them. What are the other similarities, or does it stop there?
Well, to compare and contrast the two, there's a lot more contrast, of course, than there's comparison, but the big key thing is corrupt government, and they have the same fundamental idea that the bailouts for the banks was just the wrong thing to do with taxpayers' money.
So Corrupt government is a huge thing for the Tea Party, and I think that you will find people among the occupiers who believe that there's a corrupt government. But the economy is a huge segment. I mean, you have unemployment that's reached 18% among youth. It can't seem to dip below 9% for the general population. For every one job opening, there are 5 applicants. And then again, you have the taxpayer bailout of Wall Street, of the big banks. They've profited, but taxpayers have ended up holding the bag. What is the Tea Party's movement of the economy? I mean, what is their perception of the economy?
Well, from the Tea Party's perspective, the economy is not moving, obviously, because we have those bailouts and they're retaining the money. Okay, that's the first issue. But you have to look at it, too, from the government standpoint. When you have the overregulation, it's really stifling business. Businesses don't know when to spend their money or what their tax percentages are going to be, so they're sitting back and holding back on that money. And the people are getting upset because those jobs are not coming. They're not there.
Right, and then some occupiers will say it was deregulation that led to this mess. Right. What about the occupiers as a potential political party? Where do you see this movement going? Do you see it as fizzling out? Do you see it as evolving into possibly a third, fourth political party?
You know, it's really hard to say. You know, I mean, it's such an early conception right now. What is it? I mean, going less than a month, maybe 3.5 weeks or something like that. So I really couldn't even have an idea of what direction it would go. We didn't know where the Tea Party was going to go, but it developed very quickly. And they're starting out very similar in the fashion that the Tea Party did. They're very unorganized, and they don't really have a common message, depending on who you're talking to. So we'll just have to wait and see how it evolves.
What advice would you give them, and did you offer them any advice when you visited the protesters?
Well, I didn't really so much offer them advice, but I did let them know that I was the Tea Party and that I came down and I wanted to know what the comparisons were. And what we did come into as a commonality is that they view big business as the problem. The Tea Party views the government as a problem, over-taxation, over-regulation. And the more I've really looked into it and really thought about it, you know, heavily, I look at their issue and our issue that the big business and government are married together. And so basically what happens is government on both sides is bought and paid for. You have one political party that's bought and paid for by unions. You have one political party that's bought and paid for by big government. And then when I had first heard they're 99% and the one, I was like, yeah, whatever. But the more I thought about it, it's very true that the bottom 99% are the ones that create the profit for them up here. So one of the ladies that I talked to over the weekend who actually worked for a corporation was talking about when she was a manager for a bookstore, a very large corporation that just recently went bankrupt. And they would set these unobtainable criteria for them to meet in order for them to get their bonuses at the bottom. But they kept raising that bar to where they just could never get there. But at the end of the day, the corporations, or the head CEOs, they would get their bonuses. And we're not against profit, but it would be nice to see the businesses be a little bit more compassionate and do a little bit more profit sharing. So we could probably see a commonality in that. But I think when I went down and talked to them this morning, they definitely recognize the idea that it's not solely government, it's not solely big business, that it's the marriage between the two, and depending on which political party is in power at the time, that mechanism that is buying that entity is the one that's going to get the power and the influence. And that's what it comes down to, is the corruption of government.
So very quickly here, given that there are some similarities that you found, do you think that there is any danger that if the occupiers become a political party, that they could actually steal away some Tea Party supporters? Because there is overlap there.
Well, I talked to the people this morning, the young kids that I talked to this morning. I'm going to go back and talk to them again, because we don't want a dominance of one grassroots movement versus another. We're seeing the latch on, like in the Tea Party, that we were tried to be co-opted by the establishment Republicans, and we didn't allow that. And I see the same thing going on with this group, is that they're trying to be co-opted by the unions, and they're trying to be co-opted by the Communist Party, and that's the things that are coming out in the news now.
Okay, Rhonda Denniston, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
We'll recap our top stories in just a moment. And in our public square tonight, sharing family traditions at the dinner table. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
immigration system just isn't working, and we need to change it.
He promised us immigration reform, and what did he give us? 1 million people deported.
There's fear running through these communities. You're supposed to be afraid.
We have a job to do.
Guards beating them. We're running them down like they were animals.
They're holding people who have a claim to stay in America.
These people aren't on vacation. They've broken the law.
Lost in detention. Watch Frontline.
Tuesday at 10 on KPBS.
Hi, I'm Elsa Sevilla. If you find yourself hearing about a great program on KPBS after it's already aired, we have a solution. Get notified about your favorite TV programs on KPBS before they air by subscribing to the TV Highlights email alert. This daily email will feature the best programs coming up right here on KPBS TV, so you can make a date to tune in or plan to record it. It's easy to register. Just go to kpbs.org/alerts.
Welcome back to the Public Square on KPBS Evening Edition. Tonight, I'd like to share a response from our Public Insight Network. The Public Insight Network gives you the opportunity to contribute to our reporting and help us better represent the community. Last week, we asked for stories of traditional cooking. Annette responded to our question. She says her 85-year-old grandmother cooks traditional foods, but that she and the other younger members of her family have not carried on their tradition. Quote, "We've always relied on my grandma to cook authentic Mexican meals because no one else in my immediate family has the time or desire to do so." Annette told us she relies on frozen dinners since she doesn't have time for traditional cooking. We'd like to hear your story too. Do you cook the foods of your heritage? Are the traditions of your family being passed down from one generation to the next? Join our Public Insight Network on our website at kpbs.org/pin and tell us your story. And now Dwayne has a recap of today's top stories.
A federal appeals court has denied a request to rehear the case of the cross on Mount Soledad. Earlier this year, a 3-judge panel ruled the cross is unconstitutional. A group trying to save the cross says it will go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And San Diego City Council has approved a comprehensive water plan. It's intended as a guideline for managing water treatment and supplies. And a San Diego company says it's created a new blood test to detect Down syndrome in unborn babies. The Maternity 21 test is DNA-based. It can be done as early as the 10th week of pregnancy. Tune in to KPBS Midday Edition this week for our series on Down syndrome, how families are making a difference, the resources available, and clinical trials underway in San Diego. You can watch and comment on any of the stories you saw tonight on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening. We leave you with a look at the forecast. Good night.